Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome to day 21 of the Ramadan Dua Accelerator. One thing they don't tell you about being a hijabi YouTuber is the fact that you have to re-record if you notice a lot of your hair showing by accident. And so this is a re-recording, but inshallah that just means that I'm going to be able to deliver the content to you guys in the best way because I've already practiced. Today's dua is from Surah Al-Isra, and it is a beautiful dua that specifically applies to our parents. And in fact, the dua is in a verse that is preceded by another verse that mentions the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and gives us the command to treat our parents with ihsan or excellent treatment. We'll jump right into the verse, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم واخفض لهما جناح الذل من الرحمة وقل رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. An ant on the phone. Oh no. And the translation is as follows. And be humble with them out of mercy and pray, my Lord, be merciful to them as they raised me when I was young. Now, this is a very interesting verse and dua to be talking about because obviously as a trauma coach and the work that I do, it would be very irresponsible of me to look over these verses and not mention that there are people who have very strained relationships with their parents, and whether it might be due to physical abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, spiritual abuse. And so, for Muslims who are in that situation and coming across these verses, if you are a Muslim who prioritizes taqwa in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God consciousness, then the question that comes to mind might be, how do I practice this in the situation that I'm in? And so we're going to talk about that, inshallah. There's one thing that I really want to emphasize here, which is the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in all of his wisdom, built up a framework of rights. It is a list of the way that we are supposed to treat each other, right? The husband has rights over his wife, the wife has rights over her husband, friends have rights between each other, parents have rights over their children, and children have rights over their parents. The thing about this framework is the way it's held up so strongly is that we recognize that even when our rights are not being fulfilled, it doesn't give us the right to withhold rights from another person. And so this might be a hard concept to wrangle with, especially if you are in a situation with that strained relationship. But know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already took this into account when he was building out the way he wanted us to deal with one another. And so I'll speak to this because I get a lot of questions submitted about this. If you don't know, I have a weekly podcast called Faithful Healing, where I coach Muslims through various hardships in their life. And I get a lot of questions submitted from viewers just like you about difficult relationships with toxic parents, how to navigate certain situations, what to do. We talk more extensively about what is the Islamic approach to dealing with that particular situation. With that being said, we'll go over some of the points briefly here, inshallah. But if you want more information, just go to my page, click on the live tab, and you'll see the episodes because it's a live podcast. Know a few things. We talked about the framework of rights. Also know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recognizes oppression when it happens, no matter where it's coming from. While so many of you might feel like you're suffering in silence, know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees it. And when we still do good, ultimately are doing good to our parents, even in those difficult situations, is for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not for us and it's not for our parents. It is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you will be rewarded when you do things for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with better. Now, with that being said, there are a lot of mosquitoes out today. With that being said, know that ihsan or doing ihsan to your parents looks different for different people. If you're someone who has an excellent relationship with your parents are loving, warm, caring, you feel like you can tell them anything, or you just feel like you had a healthy upbringing, ihsan towards your parents is going to look very different than someone who's doing ihsan in a situation where their parents are being very abusive towards them, are not giving them their Islamic rights. And know that for someone in the second situation, it might be that this very dua is actually part of the ihsan. And so there are people who limit contact with their parents to what is Islamically required only. We can't do complete cutoffs in our deen. Unfortunately, that's the narrative we often hear when we're talking about toxic people or toxic parents, like cut them out of your life. That's not the way Islam approaches it. Islam requires us to be willing to go over our ego for certain decisions that we have, for certain decisions that we make. The other thing that I'd like to mention as a point of hope is even in situations where you might have experienced parenting in a way that you wish was different, Know that ultimately, when it comes to generational trauma of that sort, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you the autonomy and the authority to, in the future, if you are granted children or you have children, to be the parent that you needed for your own children and to end that cycle. And subhanallah, it might be that that experience that you're in and being tested through is actually one of the greatest means of reward, because your experience with the oppression stopped oppression from continuing in your family tree after. So please make sure you memorize this dua. There is a high level of empathy that Islam demands of us when it comes to our parents. It's for the vast majority of parents, unless they are psychopathic or sociopathic, they did meet a lot of our needs as children, making sure, bro, what is going on today? I think all the bugs are seeing the light here, and so because of that, they're flying to this window. And there was a moth, and I'm actually pretty scared of moths. But okay, we're gonna finish this up because I'm getting nervous. I forgot what I was saying. Oh, they fulfilled our needs, right? So they fed us when we were hungry. They kept clothes on our back, food on our table, cleaned us when we needed our diaper change or needed a bath, stayed up with us when we were sick, right? And those are just times that you can't pay back. The labor that our mothers went through are just, it's something that we can never pay back, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes that clear. The least we can owe them for that is this beautiful dua. I hope you take the time to memorize that dua. And I'm going to close the curtain now, and I will see you guys in the next one, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.